In addition to paying attention to what kinds of nutrients and how much we need while we're pregnant, it's also important to pay attention to how we get those nutrients in. So how our food is handled, how we prepare our food, how the food that we purchase might be processed. Remember that during pregnancy, there are many things that actually have no safety data for them. It's not ethical to study how safe certain substances are during pregnancy, so we can't enlist pregnant women to take substances that may be unsafe. A lot of what we know about food safety comes from animal studies, so it's important to take a very conservative approach. If we don't have data that can prove something is safe, it's best to avoid it during pregnancy. There are a couple of reasons why this becomes more important during pregnancy than after or before pregnancy. There are some substances that will pass through the placenta very freely and will reach the fetus, who as of yet does not have all of their metabolic and immune system functioning correctly. So substances that may be safe for a pregnant mother to ingest can actually be quite harmful for the baby. In addition, increased changes in hormones, such as increased progesterone levels, actually make a mother more prone to infection. It lowers her immune system. So these are really important reasons for us to pay attention to different types of things in food. One of the first things to pay attention to is food safety. So this is the idea of making sure that your food is cooked to the safe internal temperature. So especially in the case of meat, fish, poultry, eggs, making sure that we keep our food cold when we purchase it, that we cook it within 2 days, that we consume those leftovers within 2 days, and if anything lasts longer than that, it's probably not safe to eat. We also want to make sure that our juices, honey, dairy products are pasteurized. You may have heard that it's not safe for pregnant women to have soft cheeses, for example. This isn't always true. In fact, many of the commercial producers of soft cheeses, so things like feta, goat cheeses in North America, actually do pasteurize their cheese. So if these soft cheeses are pasteurized, they're safe to eat. But certainly buying perhaps from a local farmer or a small cheese producer, they often do not pasteurize their dairy. Also looking for pasteurized honey if you're using honey, or pasteurized juices if juices is something that you're going to drink. Also be mindful of reusable grocery bags, which we so often use now. Make sure that we're washing them every couple of weeks because they will start to grow bacteria, and that bacteria can pass from the bag into the food that you've purchased. Deli meats are not acceptable to have during pregnancy unless you're going to heat them up to a safe internal temperature, which may or may not be appealing. So it's likely best to avoid these things during pregnancy. Raw fish or smoked fish or deli meats are also not acceptable. So if you do have a sushi habit, make sure that you are avoiding any sushi that has raw fish in it. And I would even go a step further and make sure that the sushi restaurant you're ordering from is practicing safe food handling. So for example, they are using different cutting boards or different knives for their sashimi versus perhaps the roll that you are purchasing. There's also other elements in the food that we eat that we should be mindful of. PCBs, for example, or BPA are things that are sometimes found in canned goods. They are often found in the receipts from grocery stores or from gas stations. These are all things that are known endocrine disruptors. And what that means is that it actually changes how the baby's hormone system is developed. So it's always a good idea to try to avoid these things. You can make sure that you're avoiding BPA by using food that's canned in tins that are free of BPA, and so they will be labeled as such, or you can purchase food in glass jars instead of tins. Also be mindful of handling receipts. So I often suggest clients just open up their bag and allow the receipt to go into the bag and not even handle the receipt, or wash their hands shortly after handling it. In terms of some of our artificial sweeteners, there is some really good data that suggests it does change our gut microbiome. So this is basically the bacteria that live within our gut. We know that that happens both in non-pregnant people and in pregnant people. So I generally suggest women who are pregnant avoid sweeteners, and if you are looking to add some sweetness to a beverage or to a baked good, to just use natural sugar. When it comes to things like herbs or teas, there's actually a lot that are considered unsafe during pregnancy. In fact, approximately 1/3 of commonly used herbs are not safe to have during pregnancy. Remember, this doesn't mean that it's because we know that it's unsafe or causes harm to the fetus, but it's because we don't have any data that shows us that it is for sure safe. I think we often think that natural things are obviously better for us, but there are a lot of examples of things in nature that can actually be quite deadly. Cyanide is a great example. Cyanide is something that many plants create as a way to ward off predators, but it can actually be deadly if we ingest it. If you choose to take an herbal supplement, I highly recommend that you speak to a healthcare practitioner, such as a doctor or a dietitian or a midwife, to assure its safety. There are some commonly used herbs that are sometimes found in teas, even sometimes found in teas that are marketed for pregnancy, that have been found to be unsafe. For example, we know that ginseng causes malformations in the fetus of rats. We don't have any studies on what that does for humans, but we can assume that it's probably not safe for humans to ingest. Other commonly used herbs that I have found to be used in clients, for example, are black and blue cohosh, which historically was used to induce uterine contractions. So women would use it when they wanted to go into labor. But we now know that it can cause heart failure in the fetus. Other herbs that we know are unsafe are things like dandelion, senna, licorice. So make sure that anytime you're having an herbal tea or any sort of herbal supplement that you have ensured that it's safe with whatever healthcare practitioner you're working for. Another thing to keep in mind is that many herbal supplements are not regulated, meaning that they may have more or less of a particular ingredient than what's on the label, or they might have ingredients in the final product that aren't even listed on a label. So I always recommend that pregnant women are buying high quality supplements and only purchasing supplements that they know they need and not ones that perhaps a friend or family member have encouraged that they take. The good news is when it comes to caffeine, caffeine is considered safe up to 200 milligrams per day, which is about 2 to 3 cups of drip coffee. So if coffee is something you enjoy drinking, there's no need to stop doing it when you're pregnant. Do remember that you can't always tell when food has gone bad. For example, listeria doesn't have an odor or have any visual change to the final product of the food. So just make sure that you are cooking any of your raw food within 2 days of purchase and then reheating any leftovers within 2 days.